In this video, you're going to learn about the two main features in the DT7 Gann module. And those two features are Gann angles and PT geometry, are Gann geometry and the squaring of price and time. The DT7 educational material does not include instruction of Gann trade strategies. This video will teach you the options in the DT7 Gann angles and the DT7 PT feature, are the squaring of price and time features. So these special features, which are very comprehensive features for those who are familiar with Gann geometric charting techniques, are available in the Gann module, but instructional material on how to use them for trade strategies is really up for the user to have learned through other sources. We make these available so that if you're using DT7 and you want to do Gann chart geometry, you will be able to do it. The DT7 Gann module is available as an add-on purchase for new owners of DT7. The features we show in this video will not be unlocked and available for new purchasers of DT7 unless the DT7 Gann module has been purchased and unlocked. The Gann module features were available as part of the regular DT program in versions prior to DT7, but they have now been separated as an upgrade model for new users of DT7. DT users prior to version 7 who upgrade to version 7 will have the Gann module features available to them because they were included as part of the earlier DT versions, and so have already paid for these features when the earlier DT versions were purchased. And when you upgrade to DT7, that is when existing DT owners upgrade to version 7, we give you the instructions on how to unlock the Gann module features. So why have we separated these the Gann module out from the new version 7 of DT? Well, primarily because, frankly, only a small amount of DT users, only a small percentage of traders, use traditional Gann chart geometry. And so by taking these out of the regular program and making them available as an add-on module, we were able to reduce the cost of the regular program so that new purchasers of DT7 who don't want the Gann geometry features essentially aren't paying for features that they don't need to use. And as I explained earlier, and I will as we go through how to use these features, is that we don't provide the educational material on particular trading strategies. This video again is just what the features do. So if you are an existing Gann trader and you know you're going to use these features, you'll know how comprehensive they are, and then you'll know if you want this add-on Gann module to DT7 or not. Okay, let's get started. Gann angles are one of those tools for Gann traders that's been used for many years, and we have it in Dynamic Trader in our Gann module. So let's take a look at it. To get to it, we go to the left toolbar and our drawing tools little toolbox. We open that up, and here's the Gann angles, and then we're going to be talking about price time squares or Gann chart geometry. So as with all of our icons, if you right click on the icon, it brings up the menu where you can make choices. And this is a pretty straightforward menu. Those of you who are familiar with Gann angles will recognize everything that's on this menu right away. We can choose whatever angles we want. And of course the angles are really just price by time. So many ticks by each bar. That's why you can do Gann angles on any time frame of data, although they were originally used and still used today mostly for daily and weekly data. The 1 by 1, of course, is one of the most important angles, and then we can have the 2 by 1 and the 1 by 2 and any other combination that we want of time and price ratio to create a Gann angle. We can change the color of any particular angle. I have the three key ones, the 2x1, 1x1, and 1x2, colored in red, and we can make them, the lines, thick or thin. Again, this is kind of standard in most of our setups. And we have enough space to make more angles than you'll ever want to make. And if you create a certain setup here with checking off a certain number of angles and whether the lines are thick or thin and what color they are, we have the conventional save that as a set if you'd like. And we've talked about that in many of the other videos, so we don't need to go through that again. Then it's pretty simple. We can draw the angles going up, we can draw them going down, and here's probably the key choices that we have is we draw the 1x1 angle. That means we use a high and low on the chart to create the 1x1 angle, or we can create any angle by ticks per bar. Some people have found that certain markets and certain time frames pretty consistently the 1x1 angle should be a certain number of ticks per bar. Now, one thing I'd like to say in this is in our Gann angles option here is a tick is 1/10. Now, I realize that for many markets a tick is not 1/10, but that's how we're looking at it. So we had some consistency, so we didn't have to enter in, you know, what is the size of a tick for this bar. So just consider a tick as 1/10. Now I'm going to do this on Gold Weekly because it's kind of interesting that I found years ago. I used to, 25 years ago, publish a newsletter called the Precious Metals Timing Report, and I use some more traditional Gann charting techniques in that report. But I'm going to do ticks per bar, that'd be ticks per week, is 1618. Isn't that kind of interesting, that fib number? And I'm going to draw these coming down. And the choice to extend the angles or not is to extend them beyond this second click or the end of the swing that you're measuring. And I always just have extend angles on if I'm using Gann angles. So let's just do OK. Let's go from this top in gold, and we'll click on the top bar, and we just have to drag the icon or the cursor just a little bit to the right, and it's going to do the 1x1, 2x1, and 1x2 angle. Those are the ones that I had checked off, and it's considering the 1x1 angle is 1,618 ticks per bar. So let's do a double click on that. And I made the 1x1 angle a thick red line, and you can see where it just tagged this bottom that resulted in a rally lasting several weeks, and it was support back here. The 1x2 I think it would be, was the initial support and the initial little decline. We came up to the 2x1, then kind of bounced around the 2x1 down to the 1x1, etc. So again, we're not giving you lessons on how to use these angles. It's just how to place them on the chart with the Dynamic Trader Gann module. We can also, our second choice was to draw the 1x1. Another technique that Gann talked about is we measure from a low to a high or a high to a low, and we consider that the 1x1 line, meaning whatever price time that swing was, we want to call that the 1x1, let the market define the 1x1, and then we can draw the other angles either side of it. So let's just draw from the next low. There we go, from that low, and we draw it to this high. And let me go ahead and take this one off. And so we've defined the 1x1 as the price by time ratio per bar for this section of the trend. Now, that's after the fact. So how does that help us? Well, again, we're not giving you a tutorial on Gann angles, but frequently when we then break the 2x1 or the 1x2, break down and not come back up above us, that's a signal that the trend has changed. As Gann would say, is once we break below a certain angle that the trend has changed, and more than likely the trend is down. So it becomes like a support line. But this is just how we draw it from a low to a high and let the market create the one by one. Now, if you'd like to look on a chart and say, well, from one high to one low or low to a high, what is the ratio? You can always use our tool here and use rate of change. So if we measure from a low to a high on a marker, it'll tell us the rate of change from that low to high. So I'm just going to click off that low to high. And we can see the ratio here is an average of $28.29 per bar. That's the average. We changed a total of $254.60 in the 9 weeks. So, of course, this rate of change is just going to be $254.60 divided by 9. So if we want to find out what is the rate of change from a low to a high or a high to a low, and then we can use that rate of change as the one by one angle if we like. That's one way of doing it. Another way is just click off the low to the high and create the one by one. So that's our Gann angles. It's pretty basic, but I think we've set it up. It's very useful for people who are Gann traders and like to do Gann chart geometry. We give them all of the basic options that can be used for Gann angles. Okay, let's take a look at the price time module, our Gann's geometric charting strategies. The second feature in the Gann module is the PT box, price by time box, our Gann's geometric charting approach. So again, let's right click on it and see the choices that we have. And we have all of the choices that would be possible for you to draw the Gann geometry in any way that you want to draw it. I'm going to make it pretty simple here. And the horizontal line, and we'll show that once we draw it a little more what we mean by that, I'll put at 50% and the vertical line at 50%. So we're going to divide whatever box that we draw in half, both by time and by price. And I'll just put the basic angles up. I've checked off the one by one. So that's going to be the diagonal of the box that we draw. And then 50% effectively, that'll be the 1 by 2 and the 2 by 1 angle going through the box. Show border. I always, whenever I've used this, I've always showed the border. I make it light gray. There's no reason to have it stand out too much. Snap to bars. We always check that off, at least I do, because we're going to be drawing this box from a low to a high or a high to a low. And we usually want to make sure that we hit that high and low exactly, so we do snap to bars. Labels on is just showing the number of price points and time points of the box. That's the only label that's going to be shown. And then we have draw the box. Well, that's what we're going to be doing. We do have other choices down here. I'll explain in a minute. We can either have a user-defined price by time, or we can define a certain number of price points per bar. But let's go back with just drawing the box. That means we're going to pick some swing on the chart from a low to a high or a high to a low and draw the box with the angles and divisions that we've chosen here. And of course, once again, we can choose where the lines are going to be thick and what color we're going to have on it. Well, I'll just make these 50% lines thick. And I'm going to make the 1 by 1 line thick. Yeah, just so they'll stand out a little bit. Reflect the box, we're usually going to choose that. That means we're going to define a certain swing in the Gann geometry approach, and then we're going to reflect it forward into the future to see if we had some reversals, turning points, that sort of thing. There'll be kind of like, I don't know, trend lines and divisions of price and time projected in the future that will make us aware of potential reversals and support and resistance. That's all we'll choose right now. We'll discuss these other choices in a moment. Let me go OK, and I'll draw it from this low up to this high. So this is the original time price geometry, measuring from an existing swing. We're gonna assume that. Let's go back here a ways. Oh, there we go. As if these bars hadn't existed yet. Maybe we've had a minor reversal and we want to measure the price-time relationships of this geometry or this swing and project it forward. And that's exactly what we'll be doing for looking for support and resistance and price end in time. So let me go ahead and expand that again. And again, this isn't a tutorial on how to use Gann geometry, but just how to use the function in Dynamic Trader. You have to get your education about Gann geometry somewhere else. So if we define this as the geometric box of this swing up, and we project forward, we're reflecting that box, the exact same conditions from here into here. The basic theory being is that subsequent market activity will frequently make reversals at the critical angles that are defined by the geometry of the first swing up, and we might have reversals both in price and time. So I made the 50% in time and 50% in price these dark blue lines, and you can see back in the original box they just bisected this box and we projected it forward. We can see that in the 50% of time is where we had this bounce up from the 1 by 1 line and almost at the 50% of price, and on the exact bar 50% of time we made that little swing high and we came back down to 50% of price. So this would be the same as if we did a price retracement from this low to this high, as well as the same as if we did a time retracement or time retracement from that low to the high. This would be the 50% in time, this would be the 50% in price. And the 50% in price is where this market tested about 4 times before continuing up. And this would be the 1 by 1 angle defined by the 1 by 1 angle of this price-time relationship from this low to this high, 2 by 1, 1 by 2. So the divisions of the original geometry of the original box projected forward are really the same as what we're doing with our fib time and our fib price relationships. This is really a 50% time cycle ratio or 50% time retracement going forward of the prior swing. And this is a 50% retracement in price of the prior swing. So I'm taking these off as I discuss them. And these angles coming down from the high, where the 1 by 1 was defined by this low to this high, and these are really just Gann angles defined by the price time of the prior swing coming down. So what's different about this price geometry or Gann geometry is that by reflecting the box forward, it's also projecting angles up from what we could call the corner of the box, projecting it up forward. That's something that you can't do without having constructed this box. And again, if you're a Gann geometry trader, you know all about this geometry and why these angles are brought up from that time. We can see that this 1 by 1 angle coming from this corner was really the resistance for quite some time. And of course the box finishes here. We've reflected it forward just one time. It finishes at this corner where this little high is made. Now that we didn't define that by measuring anything other than the prior swing. And then we did the diagonal of the reflected box coming forward. The 1 by 1 coming down was pretty good support. And once we broke the 2 by 1, we were probably in a new uptrend. And again, that's just basic Gann angle sort of geometry. Well, let's take a look at some of the other choices that you'll have with the Gann geometry in the price time box. So I'm going to take all of this off right now. I'll just do erase all. And I'll right click back on the icon. And I'll just point out the other choices that you have here rather than going through specific examples, mainly because the price-time relationships of different markets in different time frames can be completely different. But instead of drawing the box, you can just define the 1-by-1 angle as a certain amount of price per time, maybe 20 ticks or 20 points per 1 point in time. It might be an odd number. It might be 25 points in price by 12 points in time, something that you've discovered for that particular market. Well, we allow you to put in any relationship of price and time to do this Gann geometry. Or we can simply have a price per bar. Gann talked about that a lot, that so many ticks are so many points per bar. He used a lot of agricultural commodities in his examples because they were traded. The futures market for the agricultural commodities were very popular back then. Of course, they're still traded, but more futures traders, individual futures traders at least, are trading the financial instruments as opposed to the agricultural instruments. And then we can measure that price by ticks or by whole numbers. And when we choose a user define, then we choose whether we're going to draw that box up or we're going to draw it down. So these are just different ways of determining what is the price-time ratios you want for the box. And there's so we have every possible way, depending on what you're used to doing and what market you have, to define the ratios that are within that box. Let me go back and draw the box. I'm going to click on reflect again. And I'm going to go down here and do repeat. And let me show you what repeat is. And Gann traders will be familiar with this. So we haven't just reflected the one geometric box forward like we showed in the original example. We've reflected it up, down, and forward, and we've repeated it basically forward and to infinity. And again, Gann talked a lot about it might be the initial swing in a trend that will define the geometry of that trend until it's completely over. So we have to be able to project those boxes over and over again, as well as up or down, depending on whether the bars go up and down. And that's what the repeat. So every one of these boxes is exactly the same as the original Gann geometry calculated from the original high to low, and they're just projected forward. And again, oftentimes these angles and divisions of the Gann geometry in the box end up being support and resistance, even far into the future. So once again, I'm going to right click on here. We've offered you every possibility of how to do Gann geometry. Every choice that can be made, we have in this squaring of price and time. So my suggestion is we don't give educational material for Gann angles and the Gann geometry and the squaring of price and time. You really should refer to Gann's original material. Most of his hardback books that are sold do not talk about his chart geometry, but his courses that have been reprinted and are available all over the internet, I think they're long since out of copyright, but they're available. And I suggest do what I did almost 30 years ago, is read his original material before you start reading other people's commentary about Gann geometry and how to use it. So those are the two key features that are in the Gann module, and that is the Gann angles and the Gann squaring of price and time, or the Gann chart geometry. You'll probably realize that many of the functions that are in DT, fib time, fib price, are time counts, are also derived from the work of Gann. But we've separated out these Gann chart geometry functions because fewer people use them, and so we made them a separate module for those who are particularly interested in doing chart geometry. I used to do all of this chart geometry, angles, squaring, or price and time, by hand on charts drawn by hand. And then I figured that, learned over the years, that most of what we're doing geometrically we can do mathematically in these other functions of our price, time, fib, price, and time functions, and in our time count functions. So that's it for now. That's everything we've got in the Gann module. The DT7 Gann angles and DT7 PT features allow every possible option for traders to do Gann chart geometry. And once again, we don't provide educational instruction for Gann chart geometry analysis and trade strategies. And my recommendation is, if you want to learn more about this, is you go directly to Gann's original books and courses as the first place to go to learn about Gann trade strategies.